Hello everybody, I thought it was about time for a refresh of the Halo Wars 1v1 tier list. So I think it's been 9 months since my last one, and my opinions once again have changed. So this was what my list looked like back then. I have to say, yeah, I don't agree anymore. I think quite a bit has changed in my mind. Of course, if you know anything, if you follow Halo Wars much at all, you know of the recent scandal that was uncovered involving Rock Generation. Big cheater guy, apparently, for the past 3 years at least. He liked Cutter, he liked Forge. Turns out from the beginning of the game he'd have like Raid 2, and Rolling Eco 2, and Assembly 2. So, while I think Forge is still a top leader, he maybe need to be reassessed, because when you think about it, the Forge meta came about because of the Kalon, and the Kalon was cheating every single game. It's really not that hard to see that the reason why Rock was the only player in the game who had a great Forge was for that reason. But more than just that has changed. Just my opinions over time. I think I have a better grasp now than I did then. Even though it wasn't that long ago. 9 months, a substantial bit of time there. But I'm going to be comparing this new tier list to what I had before. I'm bringing Cutter all the way down to mid, where I had Decimus for some reason. I had Cutter in meta along with Arbiter, so he fell quite a ways. I just think, I don't know, Cutter gets abused by every banished. His maps are like, you play him on Mirage, maybe Vault. Even on Mirage though, it feels like you're only going to be beating picks that are under you on the tier list. You're not going to be beating anyone above you. You come across Forge, that's terrible on that map. Even lower tier banished like a Pavium is going to give you a lot of trouble if it's played well. So I don't think he fits in that well in the meta. Vault, I think he does a bit better, the way he can just blitz the nodes well. He kind of has a bit more protection because of how big of a map it is. UNSC likes having that room to maneuver, but I don't see him fitting into the meta that well. On Vault, you also run into Forge a lot, although Forge versus Cutter isn't as bad as some people would have you believe. I think Cutter can win, and the bigger the map, the better, which might be a little bit confusing to some people, but yeah, Cutter really likes having room to maneuver, even though, you have to deal with vehicles and all that. Cutter is probably the best leader into vehicles, because, he gets the 2 Vet 2 Cyclops drop and the big drop, has a Spartan, so many stuns, Cyclops drop. I don't really have to explain it. I'm not going to sit here and go through all the leader powers. I'm just trying to explain how I think they fit into the meta, and I think Cutter falls just outside of what I would consider meta leaders. Kinsano, yeah. Kinsano apparently I didn't have in the bottom list tier last time, but she definitely belongs there. Yeah, she just kind of sucks. Again, you'd be picking Kinsano a lot of the same places you'd be picking Cutter. Trouble is, why would you ever pick Kinsano when you can pick Cutter? And even Cutter doesn't really fit into the meta. He has normal hogs and a usable Tech 1 hero, not to mention the best third point in the game. And Kinsano has none of that. So, yeah. once again, not much explanation needed there. Decimus goes into meta. Decimus is a bit more versatile than people were led on to believe, thinking he was just like a bedrock or rift pick. I think he can be picked on ashes and vault confidently. Even if like Badlands is being played, then he's okay there as well. He's pretty flexible. I just wouldn't play him on small maps. But anything other than something like a Frontier or a Fissures, not that it's allowed in tournaments or show matches for good reason, because that map sucks. Yeah, I'd say just avoid him on like Mirage and Frontier. Everywhere else, he's perfectly playable. And he doesn't have any matchups that are like unwinnable or even that bad. So, I think he's solidly meta. I'd say the same for Yap, but I'd put Decimus a bit ahead of Yap because I think Yap is a bit more confined when it comes to what maps he can be played on. Like Vault Ashes, I don't like Yap that much, whereas Deci, I think he thrives there. Just because of the mini base layout and the fact that your building killers aren't quite as maneuverable. You know, on Ashes you can jump your JPB up and down the ledges. Riders can't do that, even if riders are better in a head-on fight. That's not going to give you as much utility on a map like that. And really just those big maps that you can get run around on. I know I've talked about this before, but Yap does have a mobility issue. But he's still so strong that you can kind of pin people down, and that doesn't end up being that much of a problem unless you make a mistake in the first place, or if you're just playing against a leader that is of the OP variety. So YapYap still fits into the meta very easily, and Atriox does as well. So last time I had him in the top tier, and Yap was actually more peripheral, but I've kind of moderated my opinions on both of them. Yeah, Trox I would put in the top of meta for sure, even if not OP. I think he's just solid all around. He's great on the small maps. He's certainly playable on the bigger maps as well. There are never really any matchups you feel like you can't win, kind of like Decimus, except he has more versatility because he can be played on the small maps. Jerome, I would put him in niche. Before I guess I had him in the same tier. But I do hold him in higher regard nowadays than I did then, even though he's in the same tier. On Frontier specifically, I think he's great. On Frontier, you run into a lot of like Trox, and I think that matchup is actually scary for Trox because you play Trox there and you lose to a Jerome, and that sucks. Like, that's a huge burn in a tournament or a show match setting. Meanwhile, they just burn Jerome, and you know they don't even care, and they gotta win on you because I really think that matchup is super winnable for Jerome. Mirage, he can have some use as well, but I definitely prefer him on Frontier because when you're talking about Mirage, if you're against a Banished, they can steal one of your side minis, and then you have the constant backdoor threat from building killers, and you want your hero out on the map, not just camping at your base. And they can suicide your gens over and over again, cripple your economy, you don't end up getting that many Mastodons out, and if Jerome can't get the ball rolling with the Mastodon Death Ball, he doesn't have a way to end games. And you typically don't want things going that long with Jerome. We all know Omega Team sucks. So he is still niche, but he has his uses, and he can be strong. I think I've said before, I think he has the strongest rabbit play in the game, so even on maps where he's not optimal to be picked on, you can play rabbits, and it's serviceable at least. But yeah, he does have matchups that they're just never gonna work out. Like Yap will demolish him. The elites will demolish him. Colony does very well into him, as Colony does almost every leader. But yeah, he has a place though, just very niche. We'll go Colony. He's definitely overpowered. I had him as the best leader last time. Again, I think I've improved my Colony understanding and play. I think I'm finally somewhat confident in it, when before I was still kind of figuring it out. I mean, it is simple. You just kind of put skits on everything and sit there until you have Dev Host and Tech 3 Hunter Captain, huge, unkillable, unfightable army. Like, no one really matches Colony at that 6th point, where every single unit is healing, every single unit has a skit on it, and you have a huge OP drop and OP hero with an insane siphoning attack, huge HP bar, active heal, passive heal. Don't really have to explain why he's so good. He can be played, again, on big maps, small maps. Versatile. I think Mirage is a good place to pick him. But, again, you can play him anywhere. Like Vault, if you suspect Forge is going to be picked, he's good there. Good on Ashes, good on Bedrock, good on Rift. I think he does well into Arby as well. Although he takes some finagling. Like, you have to know the matchup. I'm kind of still learning that. You have to really crutch the taunt. The taunts are huge against phantoms. And you can't just sit your hero in a garrison and have him vet up. He has to be actively taunting stuff. But still puts up a fight into the late game, even against RB. No one really... There's no one you're going to load in against and say, oh, this sucks. Except Trox, I'd say. I don't like playing against Trox's Colony. I think it's the one matchup that I think Colony actually just hands down loses. Even then, if you really want to be that guy, you can turtle, but you know, we don't talk about that. RB is gonna go at the bottom of meta. I think he definitely fits in, so he's in the same tier, but you know, it's not really the same tier anymore. A lot different company, and I just think he's not so flexible on the maps he can be picked on. It's pretty much Rift. If you want to play RB, you're going to play him on Rift. Because it's safe. You know that, yeah, there are leaders that can give you a run for your money, like Colony or Yap, or even kind of Pavium or Forge as well. But it's kind of like, well, why would I pick him anywhere else? I know where he's strongest, and there's not that much utility in picking him anywhere else. It's not like he's a crazy counter pick into any other specific leader. I'd say, like, maybe Ship. I think RB does well into Ship, because Ship, basically after 5th point, ceases to have any leader power that helps him against phantoms. So that makes RB quite good into Ship. So if you think someone's going to play Ship on like Bedrock or something, you can pick him on Bedrock. I do think he's a good Bedrock pick. It's just that, you know, he's so safe on Rift. Why wouldn't you just pick him on Rift? And it's not to say he can't be played somewhere else. It's just far from optimal. And he very much appreciates a linear map with few mini bases that he can just kind of sit around on for a bit and get built up. So next we'll go Forge. He's still in the top tier for me. Not the best leader in the game, but top tier. I still definitely struggle with playing him. There are just a few niche scenarios where you have to know, do I need to be playing vehicle? Do I need to be playing infantry? You have to be really careful if you want to play the infantry style. I think it's a lot easier to mess up, but it's kind of what you have to do sometimes. Sometimes vehicles just don't cut it. Got to be pretty careful with your Kodiak drop. If you drop those in and they just get wiped, it's kind of just game over there. Of course, the reason the heavy metal meta came about was because of cheating. Rock had Rolling Eco 2 unlocked at the start of the game, and so that gave him a free hand to unlock heavy metal, and so people started skipping Rolling Eco 2 to go heavy metal. And while I think it's okay, I think we need to give a good look at Rolling Eco 2 again. Because say you go Rolling Eco 2, upgrade your pads, you're going to get a pretty quick third point, and then you can have heavy metal third point. Like, I had been going heal third point instead of scatter bomb, but I'd still rather have heavy metal than heal. So it could be Rolling Eco 1, Rolling Eco 2, heavy metal. And I've kind of been messing around with like a hero 5th build, and you just delay your Forge Hog upgrade, and you upgrade 2 extra pads with Rolling Eco 2. Seems good to me. I haven't really done it in practice at the highest level, but, you know, theory crafting a little bit here. I think Forge deserves more scrutiny. Maybe he'll end up staying where he is. Maybe no one will be able to master the Forge like the cheater did, and he will end up falling from grace. But as of now, I think he's still top tier, just not the very top. Isabelle's gonna go in niche, and I'd put her actually below Jerome, because I would say overall Isabelle is better than Jerome. But when we're talking about specific matchups, specific maps, where you would play her in a tournament or show match setting, she doesn't actually fit in as well as Jerome does. She doesn't have like a frontier. You could say Rift, right? Don't people play her into Arby and she can fight for a long time? Well, yeah, but you've seen that matchup how many times, and how many times have you actually seen Isabelle win it? So at the most, you're just burning a bad leader to get rid of Arbiter. Okay, that's nice, but it's not a win. You can maybe pick her on Vault. Again, who do you expect to beat, though? You don't really go in picking Isabelle expecting a win. And if you're not expecting a win, why pick the leader anyway? I don't think Isabelle fits into a best of 11. I think Jerome does, especially if it's like a one ban each situation, or if there's no spoils. I don't think the same for Isabelle. I think it's going to have to be a very long series or a draft format for Isabelle to be played. So, while she is more flexible than Jerome, she has a great late game, she has a great Tech 2 hero, I would put her actually under Jerome. And then we have Pavium. I'd put him in peripheral meta. So we see Isabelle didn't move, but Pavium here actually skipped a whole tier. I think Pavium, he's still banished. Burnout is very good. You just kind of get a huge blob of upgraded units, and you get a lead, and Lich kind of ends it, at least the first one, or at least the second one. And if it goes on from there, well, you have mega turrets. I think it's largely bedrock, his bedrock pick, that I put him this high. And he's even playable on smaller maps. You know, he has choppers, he has JPB, he's playable. So against the lower tier UNSC, he can beat them up just fine. But really, that bedrock pick, I think he can actually contend with anyone, just about. And that's why I would put him that high. He really likes just being able to focus on one engagement at a time, bringing his full economic might to bear, getting Burnout 3 on a bunch of generators and fast upgrades. I think a lot of people go for fast wraiths with him. I'm not really a fan of that so much. More so just upgrading everything, building a huge eco, and you can eventually go into the Tech 3 Wraith Ball. That's fine, but I don't know why you wouldn't stick on Tech 2 a bit longer to really cement the solid eco. Of course, Shipmaster, I would put him in the number 1 slot. So he moved up from number 3 to number 1. And that's really just ease of use. I think it's so seamless playing Shipmaster. Elite grunts with raid. Get out of jail free card on your hero that already has a get out of jail free card because of Cloak, who's super fast and does so much damage, and like everyone already knows why Ship is broken. Crazy drop, displace, kind of a broken mechanic. All the maneuverability, mobility options he has. He can be picked on big maps, small maps. Doesn't have too many terrible matchups. Like I said, I think Arby is good into him, and I think Colony is also quite good into him. Forge can be good into him. I think it's more map dependent though. But even though his matchups are maybe a bit more vulnerable than like Colony, I just think he's so seamless. And it's so easy to play. It's hard to make a mistake with Shipmaster, and nothing feels as utterly broken as Shipmaster. Like, Colony has to kind of do a little bit of awkward maneuvering to really survive the mid-game and get into that point where he's completely invincible. There's nothing awkward when you're playing Shipmaster. It's just so seamless and seemingly impossible to disrupt his game plan, so he is the best leader in the game, in my mind. Vortidus I would put in the peripheral meta, and this is with spoils. I just think his matchups are way too volatile to put him in the meta tier. Like, I'd say he does well into Decimus, but once again, depends on the map. Small maps, it's not like someone's going to be picking Decimus anyway. He gets hard countered by Trox, Colony, Forge. I mean, maybe he can do okay into Forge. You don't see that matchup very much, though. I think he does well into Arby, but once again, you're never going to run into an Arby when you're picking Vortidus, because no one's going to pick Arbiter on a map where you're picking Vortidus. I think he does well into everyone below him, of course. I think he can even still lose to Cutter, but I'd still favor him. I also think he does pretty okay into Ship, but I'm not sure how I would rate the matchup, like if I'd say it's actually bad for Ship or if it's more even. I just think he does okay. I think the matchups are still very vague, not worked out to a T, and maybe people will get combat spoils banned again in meta plays, which I personally don't want. I think a lot of people do though, and a lot of people seem to feel vindicated that combat spoils should have never been unbanned because it was Rock who was pushing for it to be unbanned, and he was starting the game off with level 2 goo, level 2 spoils whenever he was playing it. So, but I still don't think it's that game breaking. He comes nowhere near as broken as anyone in the top tier, and I don't think he's as consistent as anyone in the meta tier, so I put him just outside of it. Above Pavium though, because he's still more versatile than Pavium, and combat spoils is definitely more of a game changer than Burnout is. Johnson I'm going to put in good luck, kind of bordering on the trolling tier. I genuinely see more success from Kinsano than I do Johnson. But then again, I don't see a lot of Johnson at all. Like, people just don't pick him. People will actually pick Kinsano sometimes. You don't see it work very much. Every now and again you do. But, yeah, Johnson just feels like you can play him perfectly and still lose because that's just how bad he is. I don't think he fits in anywhere, really, in a show match tournament. Even in a longer series, even in a draft format, you're going to be picking him when your back's against the wall or when you just want to burn a leader and take a loss. Once again, like Isabelle, you don't go in expecting to win when you pick this leader. And I don't have that much to say about him. I think he's probably the least played leader in the game. If I had to guess, probably at a competitive level, I would wager the least played. I think that says something, and I think he could move down further because at the end of the day, it's results that matter. Even if on paper he's better than Kinsano, maybe he doesn't even deserve to be here. And again, it was Rock who was hyping him up. Turns out he had free buildings from the start of the game. Yeah, turns out the leader was actually still not that good with free buildings at the start of the game because he lost a lot of games, even with free buildings. I think that says a lot about Johnson. I don't think I could put him any higher, and maybe he deserves to be lower. And then I'd also put Anders in good luck because, I don't know, maybe you play her on Rift, Vault. Okay, who's most played on those maps? Arbiter, Forge. Absolutely terrible matchups for you. Like if you run into another weak pick like Isabelle, yeah, you can win. Even that's kind of tough though. Who are you expecting to beat when you pick Anders? I'm just looking through these leaders. You can't really expect to beat anyone when you lock in as Anders. Same deal. Think she's stronger than Johnson though, because she does get play. I think players instinctively recognize that the Retriever is so game-changing, so strong. The game completely flips on its head whenever you drop it in, and it's immediately felt, unlike free buildings, which takes so long to actually make an impact, and you need those building slots in order to get any use out of them in the first place. So I just think on its face, Anders is higher than Johnson, and I wouldn't really think about putting her in the trolling tier because people pick her, people get wins with her, even if it doesn't happen, that much. And then Serena, I would put in trolling. Even though, once again, you see Serena more than Johnson. I think you see her on Frontier. And that's about it. Kind of like Jerome. I like Jerome a lot more than Serena there, because I think you do better into like Trox. Just do better overall, but the nodes can be annoying. Cryo Troop Rush, pretty strong. I think going into like a CT comp with a Bison is strong. You can sit there and heal the Bison with the CT Marines. That's good, but I don't know. That's about the extent of the Serena meta. Anywhere else, I don't think it's going to work. Maybe Mirage, just because it's small. The Cryo Troopers don't have that long to run to go stand next to a mini base and freeze the pad. That's nice. You just get into the situation where you actually have to take a fight, and you can freeze them, but you can't kill them. And that's always been what holds Serena back. So, yeah, Serena was the only leader I had down here last time. She stays down there, but now she has some company. Yeah, Anders hasn't moved. Johnson moved down a bit. just because I think last time I said something about Johnson, like, if people think he's good, why don't they play him more? And they don't. They continue to not play him. Okay, well, I'm going to move him down. And if people continue to not play him, well, I'll probably move him down again. I don't see it. And same thing with Serena. Even though you see her played a bit more than Johnson, you also don't really see her winning, so can't really justify moving her up. So that is my 2025 tier list for 1v1. I think this is probably the most confident I've been in a tier list I've made. But, of course, things will always be shifting, even slightly, so I don't think this will be the last one. But, as of now, it's the most current, and like I said, the one I'm most confident in, so there it is.